All right, so now we're live on YouTube. So welcome. This is the 12th episode of Maverick Minds, where we interview some interesting people with some unorthodox stories and background. So this time we're talking with Stefan Okstveit, the CEO of Adminflow. So it's a pleasure having you here, Stefan.
Thank you, name brother Stefan. It's a pleasure being on your show. Look forward to diving into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we talked a little bit yesterday about the definition of a maverick, and talked a bit on LinkedIn about that. So can you share a bit, what does maverick mean to you, and how does it relate to your background?
Well, I mean, I think for me, since I'm a 52-year-old, Maverick to me is highly associated with Top Gun and Tom Cruise, which was an idol with me. I wanted to be a fighter pilot when I was young, but the definition of a Maverick is someone who's unorthodox, usually doesn't do the job the way other people do things. They look at things differently. They're disruptors. They're corporate rebels, which is a fun thing to be, but it's not always received as positive with other people who like to maintain status quo, So, but it's someone who challenges the laws that are out there and doesn't want to, coherent with it and think it should be, maybe we can do it this way, or maybe we can do it this way. That's the typical me. So I think the Maverick person is probably most likely also someone who's more hyper, change and risk averse, doesn't care so much about the consequences. So it's someone who challenges the system and wants to do things differently. So, and I think it's a key skill for startups. I think it's a key skill for large corporations to have some of these mavericks. I know some large corporations out there in the world have designated Libros or Mavericks in their organization who have the board's approval to go around and disrupt, start their own projects, innovate inside, So it's so I'm definitely one that does things a little bit different, which why I chose to move out of Norway and study in the US and worked in the US for many years.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And with now 27 years of experience, how do you did you have a kind of specific moment where you kind of started to take a kind of an orthodox route, or have you kind of always kind of been in this kind of maverick kind of state of mind?
I think I've always been that way, but I didn't self-reflect on it until I was older.
Nice.
I think it's just something that you connect the dots as you've grown up, and then you're like, I guess I've done that in the past 10 years. So I think self-insight is something that you don't achieve until some are lucky and have self-insight when they're young, but most people don't see that themselves from the outside until they're a little bit older, and people comment on it like, oh, you're always such a disruptor, Stefan. Why don't you always have to do this and this? And I'm like, I don't know, it's just the way I am. So I've always been that way.
Yeah, makes sense. And how did kind of these experiences kind of shape your vision and approach, and kind of build eventually kind of coming to the point of setting up and building Adminflow at this point?
I think if you're the tools that this gives a company when you get a CEO or a leader or a management that has that ability. All I know is that you got to keep making decisions. If I stand still, nothing happens. If I stand still, you get shot, is the saying. So, and I think my background from the US, where they pivot much quicker in the US than they do in the Scandinavian countries, I think that fitted my personality better. So I think that same ability to rapid testing, to do things, test new things out, I think that's a key value proposition out of having a Maverick on board. Again, it could be a very daunting and tiring process for those people who are not used to it, and those people who maybe should be kept separate from the disrupting personality that a Maverick can be. But all in all, it's the way to run a startup, at least, or to run a scale up, is that you have to try a lot of things too. You have to test out your hypotheses.
Absolutely. And how do you think it relates to you being in like the tech space in general? Do you think that Mavericks kind of who are kind of willing to disrupt a bit are more kind of attracted to the development in tech in general, and have kind of more kind of eagerness to get started with kind of new innovative approaches there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the statistics is outdated, but it was like many years ago. It said that to start a tech company cost you $1 million. Now, starting a tech company costs you $10,000. And I think now, if you start a tech company now, it's probably, you can start a tech company with $1,000 or $5,000. It's so much easier to start something disruptive on the tech industry that that people think that this is where I can make a change. I can, someone created Dropbox based on some questions they sent out to some customers, and then they came up with the idea of Dropbox, and it wasn't a huge team; it was a small little company. So I think the opportunity to create something is definitely in the tech industry, and that's where more of the innovators and more of the disruptors are leaning towards tech than, let's say, medical or manufacturing, though they're innovating at a pretty high scale at the same time. But it's such a bigger elephant to kind of digest. But tech is easy. Now they're talking about the first one-person billion-dollar company. And it's probably going to be built around AI. One company run by a person that is valued at $1 billion. I'm assuming we'll get it in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. 2025 or 2026, probably. It's around very soon, at least, because the capabilities are absolutely insane. And it's about kind of approaching it in the right way as well. Like you see, it's also about the approach you take to sales, to marketing. Like a lot of the principles are the same, but it's easier to kind of learn the principles easier and test it out in practice. Like setting up a strategy is easy nowadays, but it's more kind of thinking critically about what you get out of this AI, right, and using it on a higher level.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's easier, but it doesn't mean that the quality is high. It's easier to get it up to some sort of a minimum viable product, but making it a great product or a product-led growth product obviously requires human touch and human skills and brilliant people to make that happen. But getting something up and running and something up and surviving somewhat, that's so much easier now than it used to be.
Absolutely. And how have you seen kind of the process from going to an MVP up to something that is kind of more functional on a higher level? What have you kind of seen as the kind of key points to grow that kind of solution?
Well, it's a balance act between things you think people need and then asking what the customer really need and get the user-centric design. It's not possible to do it perfectly anyway, so you still have to make assumptions. But these days it's easier to develop and build things based on what the users really want and have a user interaction in how you produce products and produce features, how you vote up features, how features get prioritized higher. Some companies now have open feature request pages so that anyone can go in and put in I would like to get this solved in the solution, and then people can vote it up and down. And I believe in that collaborative customer engagement to develop the journey. And then the minimum viable product is something I think you have to come up with yourself based on. Adminflow was spun out of a investment platform where the need just came up, and usually when innovation happens, it's someone solving their own problems. So Adminflow had a problem, or the deal flow, that mother company, had a problem that people went from 5 shareholders to 350 shareholders. it wasn't possible to run that in an Excel sheet or a simple solution. So we created a shareholder registry, and that's how this company got started. We solved our own pain for our own customers, and then we spun that out as Adminflow, and now we were built on to be a platform that solves everything from due diligence to contract management, a digital boardroom, and more.
Yeah. So,
minimal viable product is obviously how you should launch any feature and new thing. And it's super hard to make the priorities of must-haves and needs and need to have. And I think it's that's where the challenge lies with most development teams and smaller companies, is that they do too much, where they probably could have done just half and done that half much better.
Have you seen any kind of misconceptions that a lot of people, leads and prospects, have about such type of digital management platforms?
Yeah, I think a misconception is that the system's going to solve everything. I think that's a misconception out there. You can build the coolest platform for a process or something. It still requires a super user. It still requires someone to own it. It still requires an internal champion with your partner or customer. And it's shit in, shit out. So our digital boardroom is perfect example. It's a great tool to run your board meetings, protocol, signing, and everything. But if the board meeting isn't prepared, if the people doesn't send out the documents to review for their board members in advance, the solution is going to just give you a shitty board meeting. It's what people, the human interaction in the platform, that's where the magic will happen. So I think building a structure or a platform that can solve it, but then guiding them, helping them, giving them best tips, advice. This is the best way you can prepare for a strategy workshop. Hey, did you know it's time to run your budget planning for 2025? Because most of our users are CEOs and like myself, and I'm running around like a headless chicken sometimes, forgetting, oh shit, yeah, it's that time of year again. I got to do that. So it's the platform doesn't solve it all. It's that human interloop and that human touch point that will make it a successful solution for your users.
Yeah, it's interesting because it relates to what I've heard from many some contacts I have in some bigger consulting firms as well. When trying to implement kind of AI solutions and so on, that change management plays an essential role here. That with any new solution you implement, it's some kind of habit changes as well you need for these people to start to adopt these tools. So how have you or you as a platform, Adminflow, and you kind of what have your approach kind of been to this type of change management when implementing your solution for your clients?
The question is, how do I make sure that the customer have a successful experience? Or
the onboarding process generally of new clients, new prospect, and so on, and them actually getting fully integrated with using this tool.
We have full focus on churn. It's a key number to focus on. Obviously, if you have low churn, then new customers have long lifetime value that's significant. So I can spend more money because I know the customers will remain customers. And for that to happen, we have it identified in our platform that certain action must happen. So we know that if people don't do A, they don't do an import of Alten history into their dashboard, they're not going to stick around. So we nudge them. We have pop-ups. We put up a pop-up when you have a failed import, saying, "Hey, did you have a problem? Book a 15-minute demo. We'll walk you through, or call support." So we're having focus on the converting points that we know will create stickiness in the system. And once that stickiness is there, and they use it a couple of times, they don't churn. But knowing where the customers get their first wow experience. And doubling down on that and focusing on that, and then creating a tool or a system that gives value the first time, and then you come in the second time, you do another thing, and that's valuable. If you can manage to guide your users to do that like 3-4 times, you have lifetime value. You have lifetime users, I think.
Amazing. And that you have been able to kind of implement these kind of notifications and not just kind of semi-automatically.
We're constantly working on it. So we now know that this is an issue. So we include, last week we put some nudges up. We always look at where people have support issues. Like, why is it always a support issue here? All right, hey, how about we put in a link here in the little box that pops up to a support video that we have on Loom. Here, if you have issues with import, here's a short video on some of the mistakes people usually make. So we try constantly to guide and nudge and help the customer achieve what they should achieve. So that obviously the model we have pricing wise is that it's pretty cheap to have a subscription for us. And if I touch the customers with too many touch points, too much manual work, it's not feasible, it's not economical. So we try to make it as much as possible self-help, and then we have a support line, or we can do an onboarding meeting if people need it, depending on the customers. It's huge variation out there. Some are very self-sufficient and just like they don't even want the nudges. They will just like click it away. You know how it is if you start in a new system. Some people just like to explore, and some people like to have a guided 5-step process. And if you don't know who your users are, if you don't know what type of personality your users have, so if my product was for software engineers, I would have I would let them explore, because they're basically explorers per gamification category. But accountants, CFOs, chairman or chairperson, CEOs, they're structured. They have a different mindset. So I'm obviously producing experiences that fit with what they like. And they like to be guided. They want it to be. They want assurance that they've done it correctly. So you really need to have insight to your users, your personas, and what's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting here as well, because like being kind of data driven in a sense requires two things, right? It requires both getting feedback from your clients, as we've talked about, but also having the kind of capacity internally to actually address those things.
Yeah.
So okay, we talked a bit about actually gathering that kind of feedback, but how has it been to kind of develop as an organization or a startup for you when, as you have grown the organization? How has it been to kind of remain agile and adjustable to new kind of feedback and requests from clients and prospects?
It's I guess it's just it's the way you prioritize it, whether it's 10 people who say something or 1,000 people who say something. As long as you could categorize it, tag it, and take advantage of it, that's great. But I think we discussed this actually prior to this meeting. Should we have an open request or feature request template on our page? Are we opening up Pandora's box? Will we have 1,000 types of requests? Yeah, maybe not, but we could always turn it off. So we're debating on like putting it out there, or maybe dripping it out to our VIP customers, that we know have used our system for a long time, that have a lot of opinions. So you can do qualitative and quantitative data in this, but I think you still need to make some sort of an effort of showing your customers that you're listening to them, and showing the customers that you've listened to some of them, and we've done some changes, but we didn't do all of them. Most people just have a need to get things off their chest. So you'll post something. That's typical humans. We post something and we say something, and then like, all right, I feel better now. Whether the CEO will do it or not, or whether the company will listen to my advice, at least I got to say it. So half of the edge is off. Then you're, like you're saying, if you do this, you should report on it. You should get back to them after a while and say, we did these things, and we put these things on the sprint for a later period, or until they're voted up higher. But giving the users and the customers the feeling of being heard, having a place where they can say what they mean, and then prioritizing and choosing some of them they're pretty comfortable with. But if you don't do it, I think you're missing out on customer value. And if I don't do it and I don't communicate the change I do, I can never change prices. So you have to tell your users the small things you do, whether it's valuable for them or not, because it justifies a price change in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical for the reputational management as well, and growing. Right, they should both have a channel to kind of express their concern and feedback if they have any. But then to actually do something about it, you need to actually manage those requests somewhere as well. And eventually, when that grows on scale for a bigger solution, when you have maybe a couple thousands of customers, then there's a bigger volume to deal with, then you need to organize that somehow. But it's incredible how much potential there is in kind of task and project management tools at this point. To like it's an organizational problem to a large degree, isn't it? So it's just matter of, okay, how do you actually organize this in the right way to prioritize correctly?
Yeah, and like this Norwegian ERP system, Triple Text, they have, you can go in and check their feature request. It's open to anyone. And you can see that there's someone who's 400 people have voted on something. But then again, if you choose not to, then it maybe the 400 people get a little offended. But I think most people will respect your decision as a company to choose what's best. So I think if one can do it, one should have a open line of communication with the customers, so they can obviously support is an easy thing where people come when there are bugs and things that doesn't work. But user engagement and user feedback, that's what we live off. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an experience with that actually yesterday. I'm using Opus Clip Pro for repurposing content, right? And I actually got an email like from them asking, okay, do you want any feedback? Please provide us any feedback on features and so on. They also had kind of a public page where you could kind of vote on these different features and so on. And on actually recently one of my posts with these videos, I got a comment from an attorney who said that, okay, this layout doesn't work on LinkedIn. Basically, 9:16 doesn't work this way. So I had to redo how I scheduled it from Opus Clip from until 1:1. So distinguish 9:16 on YouTube Shorts on TikTok compared to 1:1 on Twitter and on Twitter and LinkedIn. But they didn't have a feature to kind of specify layout per platform, which would be useful to have, because there's different preferences of layout in these different platforms. So I at least had a platform to, or at least had a way to communicate that feedback request there. So at least that, as a customer, that made me feel satisfied, at least that, okay, they said that, okay, I will bring this onwards to the product management and so on. To what extent they will, I don't know, but at least I had the chance.
But if that change happens, you'll be like, yeah, I was part of that. That was part of my feedback. Now they're doing the listening to me. I'm important. Exactly. So that's the effect you get. First of all, you take away their pain a little bit, and then if they feel like they got to say a word, and then if you change it, then they're happy on top of it. So I use Opus Pro too. But yeah, there's and that's a product where you can invite people to come with a feature request, because it's such a niche or such a super narrow product. It's harder for a SaaS platform for administration work, because there's so many products and so many features. But
yeah, makes sense. So let's get back to some of the growth and building Adminflow. Kind of, what can you tell me more about what have been some of the biggest challenges you have faced when building this company?
Where to start? Lean company. Most people are when they're startup. Where you can't do anything with your pain until you've had the pain for a long time, and then eventually you maybe get some more funding to do something. We've been lucky in Adminflow, so we've had owners in the company that has supported us with money for cash and development. But I think the main challenge is to keep focusing on what creates sales, and that should be the only focus you should have, which means uncomfortably enough, I will have to let other things fall between the cracks, or I will so far I will have to let someone churn or have a customer not get a response back in time that I should have been responding, but I had to prioritize something else. So it's a uncomfortable priority process where you know that it feels uncomfortable that you have to let something go, but there's no chance because it will produce 1x versus doing this, and I only have time for that, and that's a 2x. So it's that kind of decision structure you need to have, where you just these are my must-win battles. These are the things that will deliver get us to come to the next level, and that's why I got to prioritize. So it's the limited resources, and then obviously most people will build a company with development resources overseas or out of country. We were lucky and found on trial number 2 a good developing team named Koja in Poland. But the first one wasn't very good. But that was years ago when I wasn't part of the company. But so I also think that defining if you're going to outsource your development or if you're going to in-house your development is a big issue. Most companies now do outsourcing, and now Poland is saturated, so now more people go towards India, where you can get again a third of the cost for the same resources you would get in Eastern Europe, to a sixth of the cost of, or a tenth of the cost of where you can get something in Norway. But the key thing is to still own the use stories, to have product management, to own the decisions and the vision of what you're going to create, and then you from there you gap it over to technical lead and then to a full stacker. But it's hard to do all of these things together at the same time.
Absolutely. And how has it been to kind of manage when outsourcing developers like this? There can be a lot of very highly skilled developers when outsourcing to other like countries in South Asia, Balkans, and so on. But it's also a concern with quality assurance and kind of business management, project management, if you're not going through the right channels. So how have you kind of approached that in terms of finding the right kind of channels for developers or when outsourcing to other places like this?
I think it's I don't know how this second development team came on board. I think that world, most consulting worlds, the saying is you're only as good as your last project. I think that if people have done a good project, that usually lands the next project. I think this company just did a good project and they were able to land us. I wouldn't touch a developing or build a new thing with a new developing team without knowing firsthand or secondhand through someone I trusted really well that these people are very good and they're sufficient in what they're doing. And it goes with agencies because I've been working as an agent or on consulting side, is that you obviously need to find the right size of an agency so that you're not the smallest customer, but you should not be the biggest customer. You should be an important enough customer for them, so that you get the proper resources and you get prioritized, because they too have to shift things back and forth. So I think that's an important feature or important criteria for when you select is obviously the skills, but then also the size, and then it comes down to chemistry. Do we like to work together?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's been reflected in our experiences as well when trying to find kind of service fulfillment outsourcing to people, right? Because we've seen some sources getting developers from the Balkans, for instance, through a Norwegian recruiting company, were immediately a quality assurance check, right? And another with people in South Asia, for instance, where we have this kind of project manager who knows where to select people from South Asia. But if you're starting an agency and you're just getting developers straight from, I don't know, Upwork or Fiverr or so on, it's like trying to find a nail in a haystack, if you're trying this from the beginning. So I think it's real critical to find the right kind of key partners, getting to know people who kind of can know how to quality assure these developers or team. And it isn't always easy in the beginning to find the right people, but that's critical to find someone who at least knows how to do that selection, right?
Yeah. And a good partner is a partner that also says no, and that also says that we can't do that, we shouldn't do it, or we don't know how to do it. So a good partner or any business connection is someone that's pretty honest with you, and that you can have a good discussion with and solve things when you can solve things, and because again, they're only as good as their last delivery, and so and then it's close. I prefer rapid, short meetings, frequent short meetings than once a month. These days, things and requests and sprints are just getting shorter and shorter. So that's a challenge too, But if people can develop, if your competitors are developing twice your pace, then you got up your pace. Otherwise, they'll surpass you. So it's we spent a lot of money on development, but and you're never done developing, but at some point you need to not only introduce new features and new products, you also need to go back and make sure that your products are really good, and polish them up and fix them and make them work even better, and add new functionality, new features that you currently didn't have. So it's a constant work. It's a constant job.
Yeah. And how do you currently kind of make these priorities on the features and updates you want to focus on and work on and add at any given time?
We have had a pretty maverick approach to that, because we were small enough that we didn't have as many stakeholders wanting to adjust or correct us or nudge us in the direction that they wanted to do or wanted to go. But at some point you can kind of wing it, or you can shoot from your hip, but eventually you're going to have to structure yourself. You're going to have to use Jira. You're going to have to describe everything. You're going to have to collect all the requests from your customers. You have to, because eventually it's just, you're going to lose control. And you got to be able to sort it, prioritize it, tag it, add it to a sprint. So we use Jira for development as a way of keeping track. And then we develop sprints, and we tie subtasks to sprints, and we have a backlog that's massive. And then every so often we go through the backlog, and we look at some of the requests that's been coming in, and we look at some of the, now when the timing is right, then we launch new features, or we try constantly to say to ourselves, okay, is this something that's nice to have, or is this something we must have? And is this something that we can make money on? Can we make money on this thing that we're doing now? Yes, maybe not right away, but it's 1 out of 3 steps to increase the price on the module. So I think you have to have the evaluation, or the rationale behind why you're doing it. If it adds value, and if you can make more money on it, then definitely. But if it's just someone said it, be cool, or then maybe it's not the right thing to do, because I think people have a tendency to develop much more granularity than the product really needs. But the customers it's usually something simpler, something easier they need to solve, and trying to kind of not steer away from that, but go back to, okay, well, it's the five things they want to do. Let's just make sure those 5 things run so smooth, so intuitive that 80% of our customers or 50% of customers are just like, they go in, they get it done, and they're happy. And then we have some customers who are like, I would like to split it up into these things. And all right, but if that's only 20% of my customers, maybe I shouldn't do it, because they're not going to churn. They will like to have it, but there are not enough of them. So that's obviously based on gut feeling, feedback you've gotten, how many votes if you have a voting system on new features that the customers are saying they would like to have it, and taking all that into consideration when choosing what should be prioritized for the next month sprint. So yeah.
And it's interesting to hear about as well, because
and it's
there
good
is
to have a backlog. It's good to have a backlog. You should always have a backlog, and having a backlog doesn't mean you should fix everything. There's definitely tons in the backlog you should never fix, but you should have one.
And it's interesting as well to hear about, because there's kind of a split between how an agency runs and how a SaaS company generally runs, right, when it comes to continual development. Because if you're an agency, you have a project for a specific company, then it should be clearly defined, right? Okay, this is what we're going to deliver for you. And then the client may say, oh, I want this, but okay, have you clearly defined this, right? Having a clear scope of it. Otherwise, this kind of scope creep is really often happens, right? Because they want this, they want that, they always want something extra, right? But I imagine in SaaS it's similar with the scope creep, except that it's kind of a matter of internal priority, not within the kind of project scope, but within the internal development of the platform.
Yeah, and we're having an unwritten rule that will be a written rule in the coming weeks, because we're reorganizing things a little bit now. Is that if you want to be able to request new features, you got to be a super user of our system. You can't just sit on the side and say, "Oh, it'd be nice to have that." No. You need to be a user. You need to be in there and look at it, and then, because that will make so much more sense, and you will request things that are actually valuable and not something you think will be valuable.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like, who should be able to do it? Everyone, yes, no, but at least these people and these partners. But for them to be able to do it, they have to be users. They can't just sit on the outside and come up with things out of thin air without being it. So you can structure the requirements so that the things you get and desires of things to change actually has a foundation in a user from the system. So, but yeah, otherwise you're saying, they'll be like, oh, it'd be nice to have, let's do that, and then you're like, no.
Yeah.
So that's how projects run out into never-ending stories, and that's how development companies probably not as profitable project when you have that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a big trap that is easy to fall into. But yeah, and another thing to get back to this matter of sales as a priority. How do you kind of balance kind of the importance of sales and also doing kind of this kind of continual development on the product front?
Yeah, 24 hours a day. Some periods I just choose to focus on certain things. I think if I'm smart, I should plan my sales activity based on my customers' annual or season wheel. There's certain times of the week or of the year where I know my customers have no intentions of talking to me. They don't have time. Some of the customers I have are accounting firm companies. Second quarter, it's annual review or it's annual reporting. No one's going to take a sales call. All right. That time I can free up to do other things. So I try to tailor it into that. Otherwise, besides that, I think everything is a battle for attention. And if you don't win the battle for attention, no one's going to remember you. So I think that it's a leadership and it's it's in most companies. Communication is a leadership function or leadership responsibility. So if you're a CEO of a SaaS company and you're not out there communicating, sharing your journey, telling about what's going on, you're missing out. So I try to be active, and I'm comfortable with it. My first job was a radio host in the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation, NRK. So I've been comfortable with talking in front of people. So I try to create content, be where my users are, and try to every day at least get in a couple of sales things. Even on my busy days, I always have to do something sales. So it's priority.
And it's interesting to hear about the seasonality part as well. I noticed that especially during the summer holiday, these 2 months, it's very difficult to get in touch with or talk to, like even senior leadership and executives, especially in Norway. And I imagine that will also be the case probably in the second half of December as well, probably. But how has your kind of experience been generally kind of identifying and overcoming these kind of seasonalities, and how is it in kind of Norway compared to other places you may have experiences with?
Yeah, well, in the US, no one has vacation, so it's an easier thing. Everyone's working all the time. People in the US, when they heard we had 7 weeks paid vacation, they're like, well, how the hell do guys get work done? Well, we do it when we're not on vacation. So we're maybe more effective. But I think the Scandinavian way is, it really depends on the target audience. I mean, I worked for a bigger ERP company, and they were like, well, on Sundays we don't do anything. But I'm like, no. I think most owners of companies, they work on Sunday evening. Sunday evening is prime time to hit them with something, maybe not noise, but something of value. So I think it's, if you don't track your users when they're on, what they do, what time of day, and then tie that up with what kind of pain points do they have at what times of year, and you build your communication and your marketing around that, then you're obviously missing out. So that's the ABCs you got to do. And I believe in physical meetings. I book meetings, digital meetings as often as I can. People can book a demo with me at any time. And a lot of the sales I get from people saying, well, it's just so easy to book a demo with you. I just, I guess I chose you. So, but yeah, if you think that what you're doing is on top 10 list of priorities or attention, unless you're Xbox or FIFA or, Haaland or something else. Yeah. But if you're selling a SaaS product, most likely 95% of your customers don't want it right now. Yeah. So the ideal is to be there, add value constantly, so that when they need you, you're top of mind. And being top of mind, meaning that you got to out communicate and out value your competitors, which is a big job when you're maybe competitors are bigger companies with their own marketing departments. But Opus helps out. Not being afraid of pulling up your phone and just sharing something helps. And people like to vote for the underdog, so it's always good to, if you are, to play that card. And people like to observe. It's the same statistics now as it has always been. So if people are fearing to post on LinkedIn because so few people liked or said anything, it's only been 1 or 2% of people to call into a radio show in the old days. It's the same thing now. Most people just sit and observe. So it doesn't mean it's not working. It means they see you and they don't say anything. I meet people like, oh, yeah, I see you all the time. Like, oh, you haven't talked to you since I went to high school with you. Send me a message. No, I watched you for many years. I'm like, okay. So most people will just observe. So I think I think that you just got to be it. You got to just be out there and do the best you can. And I've been in companies where they're like, we should communicate much more. Like, well, the customers doesn't want to hear that much. I'm like, well, until a customer says to us, Jesus, you guys communicate a lot. Okay, and that's the top of the bell curve. Then we'll take that top point and we'll adjust 10% down, and that's where we're going to be. That's our baseline. But until some customers say, I'm so tired of hearing from you guys, we're not there yet. So that's a Maverick mentality right there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot about volume, but then it's about adjusting based on the quality as well, right? Like I've seen that as well. Like I've posted so much at this point, right? But then come to the point where I noticed that okay, I need to improve some of the quality because something isn't working here when I'm posting every day, but still no kind of results there.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
such a
about
long
adjusting as well.
Yeah, so constantly improving and always being self-critical, not too self-critical because you're not going to dare to do anything. But I've discovered that there's a super long tail on giving without expecting anything in return. So I'll share any insight I have, skills and tips and tricks with anyone, and I don't expect anything. I see to this day, I see things drip in because something I did for someone 10 years ago. So I think you just give of yourself, ask for what can I do for you? Can I add value? Add value, and you'll get it back. You might not get it back immediately, but it will definitely be in your favor. So I believe in that full-hearted. It's just there's no other way to go about it. And can you imagine how cool it would have been if Jeff Bezos documented via his own YouTube channel his journey? Oh, people, I would love to watch it. So you may think that your episodes now doesn't have that much value, but if you in the future come up to that point where it's very valuable, everything behind you will just up itself in value. So, and there's no other way to go about it. So you just got to do it.
Absolutely. I remember to have seen a video from Bezos in an interview of Bezos in the 90s when he'd already earned a few millions or even billions. He was still driving a Honda, and the interviewer was like, "What's the deal with the Honda?" And because he absolutely could afford something better, but he was like, "Oh, this is a perfectly good car." But then now, like 30 years later, then of course he has something different.
And the enormous deal Amazon made with one of the book chains in the US, where they're like, well, we don't believe in digital, so you can do all our digital distribution, you can own it, and just like digital took over, and then it killed the bookstore, and he became the bookstore online. But anyhow, so I believe in putting yourself out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And expectation management is really important there as well, right? Like not expecting all the results to come immediately, because of course that doesn't happen. I've seen some people talk about like, I may start with like this or this with video or YouTube or something, right? Thinking that the first or second will be what takes off. Like most likely not. Like I've almost had 700 videos at this point, and it's like not even 1,500 subs, right? It takes time, and it's slowly but surely. But if you make it more about, okay, you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to get better with time, then when you reframe it to that instead of expecting immediate results, I think that's a much more kind of long-term and sustainable approach to it than expecting everything to take off right from the start.
Yeah. And it's a long-term game, especially with podcasting and any channel you develop. You got to commit to it and say, I'm going to do this. Is what we're going to do now. Again, if you've done it for 2 years and nothing's happened and you went in sales from it, then maybe something is wrong with the format or the quality. But there's no. I don't see any other way around it. And to these days. You're bombarded with so many messages, so much that to break through is getting harder. It is easier to break through now on LinkedIn in Norway because most people don't post anything, so it's high demand for content. Same as it's super hard on Instagram now or it's been hard on Instagram for a long time to break through because there's so much videos, so many reels. But Reels on Facebook is performing really well because there's so many users and so few post Reels on Facebook. So this thing is a mass that kind of moves around, and you gotta stay on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've talked a lot about now prioritizing sales a lot. So how can we kind of break that down into how to prioritize or know kind of which sales activities to do between, like, how much time should you spend on strategy in terms of identifying, fine-tuning your ICP, finding the right target audience, finding the right channels to get in touch with these people, how do you get their attention, and then how do you get them onto meetings and so on. There are many kind of different phases in these sales processes. So what have kind of been your mentality when it comes to like approaching sales and prioritizing the different tasks that is within that box?
Good question. Ideally, you should know your customer acquisition cost per channel. So, I mean, ideally, you should know that when we do something on LinkedIn, organic, we get these results. And we get these results, and we get this type of quality of results even. So ideally, you should be able to track that, so you can keep track on your CAC, your customer acquisition cost. If you don't have that ability, at least you got to do something. But I've noticed that I don't have time to sit and call out. I do a lot of I use some scraping tools on LinkedIn, gather for 400 chairmans or chairpersons in Norway. Did that, sent a message out to all 400. And again, I wasn't selling anything. I just asked for their advice because we're launching a boardroom, a new board portal. Could I ask for your advice with all your expertise and experience to tell me what you find important? And so it's obviously your pitch and how you approach it. I don't have time to sit and call. I do a shotgun approach as of now. I don't do account-based marketing because most of my products it should just be selling itself on the website. So I try to just fill up the top part of the funnel, create awareness, tell about what do we solve, push on the different messages at the different times of the year, and we grow that way. And then when I took over as CEO of Adminflow, I shifted the focus from one-on-one sales, which I still do. Anyone can book me, and I'll do a quick demo, and hopefully they'll buy the product. But I focus on channel partners and channels and partner sales. So I've been, because I know that someone who comes from a partner is probably twice as much willing to buy the product. Their intent is double from someone who's falling in through the website and requesting or doing a 14-day free trial. So you gotta, but you have to measure these things, and if you don't have the measurement, then at least make some hypotheses about what channels are we going to try first, based on, ask ChatGPT what channel should a SaaS company selling these types of services choose, and most likely will come up with a very good first approach. And then you collect data as much as you can, but more important, every time someone calls me in, I do self-reported attribution. I note down, I ask, what made you call me? What was it what happened before you took contact? Because I want to track that. I want to find out what they did before they did the search. Most of the times it says, no, I just needed the shareholder registry and searched and found you and checked you and the competitors. Otherwise it's like, well, I knew about you guys, saw a podcast and thought, all right, I'll give it a try. So I need to track what triggered the sales, because these days it's not possible to run both, to track things with GDPR the way it is and Google Analytics. I don't get much value out of Google Analytics anymore. So I rely on self-reported attribution as an important part of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And that anyone can do that. It's an Excel sheet. And then last month, 10 people came because we have a podcast. We'll continue. Or no one. Maybe we should quit. But and then larger partner sales. which is it's a big job to land them, and that's just 10% of the job. When you land them, then you have to really get going, so I had this experience where I landed a large Norwegian partnership with 25,000 SMB companies. And in the elevator going down from that meeting, I was just, and then as the door opened 10 seconds later, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta do all that now. How the hell? I need to prioritize that. I need to drop that. Now I gotta choose this. So I mean, even growth is painful because you got to deliver on it. So landing a partnership contract isn't big. Getting the value out of it is the hard job.
So what has been kind of the process for landing those partnership? Have you been through some kind of like letter of intent type of memorandum of understanding, or like these type of structured documents to kind of, or how has like what has been kind of more formal approaches, and what have been kind of casual kind of processes in these meetings for landing these partners?
I've done two approaches with the two partners I've landed now in the last 3-4 months. One was towards the fishing and seafood industry in Norway, where we thought, okay, we're going to talk to this organization, but how about we do some testing first? So we found a couple of fishing companies, called them, did some interviews. Okay, what's your day like? What is your pain points? Do we have a fit? And that gave us enough background to connect with this organization. Say, we have talked to a couple of your members. They seem to have no solution for this problem. We have a solution for this problem, and we would, like to have a conversation. And then that conversation, you gotta convince them with your demo of your product, and then it ends up in a back and forth deal with kickbacks or one-time fees. And ideally, you don't want these agreements to be kickback from zero. Maybe you want to negotiate kickback from when I get my cost back a little bit. But most companies are willing to do it. But then again, if you end up as a company that for a partner that's one out of many hundreds, then you're not going to make much of a difference. But so you got to select the ones who you really think you have a fit. So that was one approach with this fishing. We found potential cases, and we said, we think we have a hypothesis that they have these types of issues. And then we learned something else, like, oh shit, they don't have that. But they do. Every fishing boat is their own shareholder company or their own company, and needs to report to the Norwegian authorities once a year, or they have owners. They're invested in some in food, some in facilities, some in boats. So we identify their pain points, and when you come to the meeting with that insight, you gain credibility with right away. With this other big one, it was just I've trailed it back. It was a LinkedIn podcast episode that I created with Adminflow's own podcast, Du om det, with this Norwegian angel investor that someone commented. I went in, said, thank you for your comment. We became friends. I looked at his backgrounds. So you got to be in the details and like, oh, this is a good comment. This could be interesting. And I booked a meeting. We had a second meeting, and he said, I'm going to introduce you. I like what you guys are doing. I like the way you work. I like you. I'll introduce you to 3 different people. And one of them was this partner, and we now have a partnership with. So again, I didn't expect anything from that episode. I just wanted to give value to my potential customers, and out of that became a big partnership agreement.
Amazing.
So it works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely. And when it comes to kind of building trust with a potential partner, as well as kind of maintaining professionalism, what is your take on kind of introducing NDAs? Like, where, if anything, or if anywhere, should you introduce that kind of agreement? Like, where goes the limit between kind of, okay, this becomes too structured, kind of limiting trust, or where does that kind of play a part of kind of the process of initiating these kind of partnerships?
Yeah, see, I don't I don't like NDAs unless one
Okay.
have to have them.
Yeah.
I don't have an NDA with any of these. I mean, you do got to read the contracts with a magnifying glass, because I wasn't, and my back then current chairman, he's like, "Do you know this sentence here? Do you see what they're saying?" I'm like, I'm reading. I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I guess I cannot give more than that to any other. I'm like, all right, that's not good. He's like, "We can't have that sentence." So you got to watch out for every freaking word in that contract, so you don't get tied up to something that will limit your way of doing business with others.
Yeah.
So I think it's in devil's in the detail on it. But besides that, I'm maybe the Maverick mentality, different way of working on things. I think people are usually pretty good. I'm pretty good at reading people. Maybe I'm naive, but I think openness and transparency is the future currency. So as long as we don't share source code, which you never get, everything else is pretty open. But back to the discussion. Should you have an open request and roadmap to your company that your competitors can go and look at? That's the downside of opening up your feature request, or where people can go and see what's coming next, what's voted on. My competitors can go in and look at that data and say, "Oh, it looks like a lot of people want this type of feature. Let's do it." So those are the types of things that you need to make an odds on. Say, "Oh, I doubt it. Probably, I don't know, 95% no on that." All right, and then we'll do it. But I mean, it's it's nothing more scientific than that. But it's gut feeling and just using your own brain. And then some questions might be for the board to decide. Should we have that? Should we not? So you don't have to sit with that responsibility yourself, and then all of a sudden your competitors are launching everything you're going to do a week before you. Then you have a problem. But I doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, true. And I think it probably also helps, right, to have a kind of clear objective with the partnership as well. Like what I've seen a lot with kind of classifying partnership is that often it's generally kind of three different categories, right? Either it's sales or distribution partnership, or it's service fulfillment, like either kind of subcontractors in most cases, maybe virtual assistants or so on for internal work, on product development, on some other kind of more long-term partnership. But like being clear in those intentions like may help kind of land those meetings. And I've been surprised as well, like how many discussions we've been in with potential partners just because we're clear on, okay, this is what we like, this is what we need, this is what we can help each other with, and okay, we have a process for this, right?
And I think with any type of relationships, whether you get a new employee or you going into business with someone, managing expectations is something I usually do. I used to do that in my job interviews in the past. Like, okay, so you've hired me. It's gone. 1 year has passed. We're sitting here. We're really happy. You're saying, "Good job, Stefan." What have I done? If you're saying that. And then like, "Oh, I guess you've done these things," So it's the same thing here with this one partnership. Like, all right, we're done in a year. What do we think we've done? How many of your members have we activated? 10%. Okay, and then you go backwards. All right, then it's not going to just be enough to be mentioned in the newsletter. We're going to have to come up with more creative campaigns. We're gonna have to do other types of actions and be part of different conferences. So you can always end with the end goal, and then you do a gap analysis, and you say, all right, we're gonna go from here to here, and then you work your way back on. All right, well then let's start with that. And so you have to, and then that gives you obviously the dictates that you have to be in close contact with them. You have to have frequent meetings. You have to check on how it's going. You have to ask for honest opinions on things from them. But usually with my product, it's the sales or distribution. But I'm willing to a big enough partner to say, all right, how can we do some design? Can we package our product a certain way for only your members? Let's do signature, document center, and a contract management. Is that a package that your customers could want? And then we can say, yeah, that's something that would, and then again, this partner may be able to pop a question to their customers. If we had this product, would you be willing to buy it? So I think there's no one shape fits all. It's your ability to adapt to, whether it comes to pricing, whether it comes to how you package or your products or what combinations. Because that will probably give you better results. But it's a pro and cons. You got all right, it's going to cost me 100,000 kroner, but I'll probably make 200,000 or 300,000 on top of that in sales. All right, well, it makes sense. Let's do it. And so that type of dialogue, that type of connectiveness with your partners, you need to have. I think otherwise, it's not going to be a successful partnership. And another super important point, you do need to have an internal champion with your partner. If there's no member of your partner that just thinks you have the best product in the world and knocks down doors for you and talks your case when you're not there, you're also not going to make it. So that's an investment you have to make, and you have to find that person probably before you try to push for a signature.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so that expectation management is quite critical across the fields.
Yeah.
So let's move on to a different topic, which is also kind of related in terms of kind of team building internally. Like you yourself have kind of a certain kind of standard of quality and problem solving for what you want to be achieved within the company. So how do you kind of build a team that kind of shares that commitment to quality and problem solving?
It's finding people who are passionate about their job. My team consists mainly of, besides my board, which are grown-ups, mature adults, and not usually of younger people. But I think that I can learn a lot from my team. So I think they should tell me as well what they wanted to improve or what they think it could be a better thing to do. I don't dictate a lot of things. I think in ownership and taking ownership of your function, and my customer success manager definitely has better pulse on my customers than I do. I try to just maintain a pulse on it constantly, but he has I weigh what he says heavily because I know he's in contact with them all the time. Besides that, it's just when people deliver something that you don't like, that you don't think is good enough, you got to communicate it. It's just like, hey, this wasn't that good. But you don't have to slaughter them, but just like, all right, I expect you to do these things this way. So you have to be clear. Otherwise, people don't know. So it's a communication issue, and it's a way of doing it constructive and do it right away, ASAP. Don't let it be an issue that bugs you after a while. Say it right away so it doesn't become an issue. And then again, maybe ask them. A smart person said, "What do you think, Stefan? What do you think you could have done differently?" I'm like, "Oh shit, I got to think." So ask the question to them. If what could we improve? If we want to improve our quality. And I'm still building a small team. And the saying is, hire slow, fire fast. So I think being cautious of who you hire in, test them if you can. I'm lucky I can test through some of my owners, some of the potential employees I take in. And so because hiring the wrong people when you're a small company is devastating.
Yeah, especially in Norway, which much difficult to fire fast in Norway. So better be careful.
Yeah, exactly. But it's sorry to say, it is possible to get rid of people. It's possible to, but it has to be documented. It has to be something that you agree with, that this is not good enough. It needs to get to this level, and you're given a good enough time to do it. Report back, and then eventually you are allowed to say that this may not be the job for you. But then again, I think that too is also part of a dialogue. Because eventually people who don't feel that they're achieving in their role or delivering on their role they're unhappy. And if you don't ever say anything, but they just sense that you're unhappy with them, that's horrible. That's super bad of you. You just need to tell them. Otherwise, at least give them a chance to change or get the feedback. So, but eventually, sometimes people come to the conclusion where maybe you'd be happier doing something else. You don't have to fire them. You can just have a conversation about what makes them happy and if they're happy in their role. But it's hire for hire talent and train for skill. So
absolutely. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense, because people who are unhappy in their job and don't get feedback or improve on it, like either they will just get worse and stay in the same position, or they will quit at one point or another. So better to give them a chance to be clear on the communication with the feedback, and then see from there. Either they improve or they find some better. That's better for everyone in a sense. That's better for you as a leader, and it's better for them to find something they actually enjoy more, not like people making each other miserable because of the lack of communication.
And lack of trust of being honest and having a constructive conversation about it. It's nothing. It's just business, though it affects people very personally when they're not feeling they're fitting into a job. But you have to either take care of it and solve it, or solve it or then maybe not. Maybe it's not the right thing. But that comes to me too. I'm alone as a CEO. Luckily, I have a head of the board or a board and chairman that sees me and that I have to report to. It's good to have someone to report to. Because I too need feedback. I too need to feel that someone's seeing me and assessing what I do. It sharpens me.
That feedback is critical in any situation to have. Because we all have potential for growth, right, in some way or another, no matter which stage you're in. So getting that.
I'm learning new things every week. I mean, it's just I do. I've never learned as much as I've learned last half a year. Insane, which is cool. I love it. It's not for everyone. Startup or scale up should be sponsored by Red Bull.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's extreme sport for business. That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know a couple of people. Maybe I need to see if they can do that. They sponsor esports. Why shouldn't we sponsor young talents? I'm not young anymore, but young talents. And some companies do. You have big corporations who do these sponsorships. But anyway.
Yeah, there are a few long work days once in a while where the coffee isn't enough. You need the Red Bull to kind of keep you going the whole day, right? So you can definitely sign under for that. But when it comes to the hiring processes as well, like how do you balance between kind of generalist and specialist when you're hiring? Of course, you have a role, you have a set of tasks that need to be fulfilled. So how do you kind of balance between hiring kind of generalists and specialists to these new roles?
I think it really depends on the role. For my customer success person, it was important that he was a specialist in what we do. So he has an accounting background. And it's technical on top of that. So I myself I'm known for a generalist, but I still have a couple of really pointed skill sets. So I really think it depends on if you want to have a salesperson the one skill they need to have is just that killer instinct. I don't care about if they know anything about anything else, as long as they can close deals. So then it's a specialist function. I think that the specialist and the expert is probably going to be more valuable now than in the past due to AI. Due to that, we will put AI on the basic, easy functions, and the specialist and the specialist role, critical thinking, discussing, being an expert advice into that loop is going to just be more and more worth.
Yeah.
So besides that, it's just the main character feature I look for is just someone's eager to learn, someone who wants to develop, and has that mindset of and that energy level. Because if you have a low energy level, you may not be an ideal person to work with me. So it's got to fit. It's got to be chemistry, and it's got to match with how I am as well.
I think not enough applicants generally understand that it's not like it's partly a matter of skill, but it's not just a matter of skill, right? It's a matter also of attitude and of generally the energy to be like you're working around people as well, not just working on something in a soulless corporation, preferably, right?
Yeah, and if you could just cherry pick your employees, you would pick those who just, delivered the most insane project over here, and you can go and pick them. But most likely, you will never be able to afford them, and someone else will take them. So, otherwise, I would hire on merits. I would hire on what they had achieved in the past. But most likely, people hire people that are very young out of school, But so then it's a mindset and the curiosity and the willingness to learn and the eagerness to take on responsibility is probably more important than anything else.
And what kind of advice would you give to other leaders who want to kind of establish a cohesive and highly skilled team in general?
Good question. I don't know. I think it boils down to just the whole idea of like the sandbox. Like, who do you? Work should be fun. It should be fun to work. It should be fun to be in a team. Who do you have the most fun with? And then fun sounds like a silly thing, but it could be serious fun. It could be fun of solving a difficult technical challenge. But I think if you look for people who you enjoy being with and that enjoys being with you, then most of the other things, as long as the other things are there's a hygiene factor, then that's how you should hire. And I've considered doing a hiring initiation where you go camping. Part of the job hiring process is we spend 2 nights in the tent. We get to be quiet together, just really get to see how they solve things, just to get to know them. I think that I don't know if I have time for it, but I actually was considering that just so I can really get to know them. Someone in the US once said to me, I don't hire anyone unless I've been drunk with them, because then I see who they really are. I don't know if I recommend that, but I guess he said I don't do business with anyone I haven't been drunk with.
There is some truth in that, I suppose.
Yeah, but anyone becomes idiots when they're drinking, so I don't think that's a good in general. I will never ever get drunk because I turn I become like a useless 21-year-old Stefan again. It's not. I don't know. I actually don't know because I haven't really been there in many tens of years. But yeah, I think I think it's that really getting to know the person is key. And then you can do qualifications. You could do, all these stupid tests and logic, ability to solve logical problems and stuff. I don't really think it really comes down to that. I think you'll depending on what you really want to do. If you want a coder, then maybe you do a test for coding or a test for how to solve this issue. But mostly it's about personality and how that matches with the rest of your team.
Yeah.
And everyone should be allowed to meet them. I think if you're a small team and you're going to hire a 4th person or 5th person, everyone should be able to interview them. And they should be able to interview back. If I was on the other end, I would say I have some questions for you. I want like 3 references from your company of how it is to work here.
Yeah.
So I've heard people say that people are in searching process or a job application process should actually request references from who their potential future employer as well.
Yeah.
The best thing is for it to be a match,
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes both ways. And
Yep.
yeah. So, can you tell me more about some of the industry trends you've seen generally in this field, with when it comes to corporate governance, digital management platforms, like what you've seen in general, like what have been some kind of recent trends, like during 2024, for instance, here?
I think recent trends they've been coming for a long time is being transparent, the openness law, the ability to track, at least from my business, because I deal with who owns what in a company, to do background check on ownerships. There'll be just more and more requirements for reporting on ownership, reporting on security, reporting on GDPR, on compliance, on security. I think anyone who starts a sausage company right now, like myself, small company, but I have customers who are who need to check that I do things in a secure way. So I think the requirements are going to be higher. And then again, I like to play. I would think that AI has an important part of a platform in the future. That's a minefield of issues, with that. So I think security and compliance and transparency is just something that's going to be more and more requested, up and in a balance where you don't give away sensitive information. So in Norway now, we have more and more background checks on ownerships. You need now to report in who owns what in your company. You do that every year, but now they add more reporting. So you'll definitely have more request and more requirement for reporting in the future.
Yeah. How do you see Adminflow growing over the next years, and do you have some kind of idea for the vision of the future for developing this platform forward?
Yeah, we do have a vision, and that is to become, the best board portal in Norway. We would like to take it internationally. Most SaaS companies these days now are in a hyper-competitive environment. Adminflow is no exception. There are now used to be 3-4 competitors in my space. Now there's 8, 9, 10 at least. So there's going to be a period now that either you will have to do a leap. So maybe that's part of the plan, to do a 2.0 of the platform that will frog leap or leap across all our competitors, so you can outcompete them. But I also think it's going to be a lot of companies will be bought up by bigger ones. So there's going to be a consolidation period in my field. And the question was again, I probably answered something else.
Yeah, the question was, how do you see Adminflow growing over the next years, and what your vision for the future was?
Yeah. So I think the key here is that we've landed a couple of strategic investors that bring a lot of network and connections and value to the company. So I think that in the next in 2025 will probably be one of the bigger solutions in Norway, and then in 2025, I think it's important to look outside of Norway. I mean, there's such a big market in Norway for what I have, that it's still a lot of market share left to be taken out of that cake, where your competition is an Excel sheet or Google Docs, or a folder on your desktop without backup on your laptop, which is insane, But so for now, there's still plenty to be market share to be taken in Norway. But whatever you run, whatever company you have, whatever solution you have, it's like life. You're on borrowed time. It's just a matter of time before either someone else will outcompete you, or someone else will outrace you. So it's always a race. You just got to be aggressive. You got to be up in front. You got to be out there. I don't think there's any solution or any strategy to just say we're happy as we are right now and we're just going to continue. No, we're going to continue to grow. We are probably I'm gonna take these partnerships I have now and leverage them for new partnerships. That's going to be a key. And then develop a product that I would love to be product-led growth. I would love to have such a simple boardroom or a simple shareholder registry that it would be spreading by itself, and then you put marketing on top of that. So we're constantly going to improve the quality of our tool and make it easier and better to use. So and then work on not churning any customers, and just build that hockey stick.
Yeah. Now I think you answered the next question as well. You're getting ahead here. That's great. About what advice you would give to entrepreneurs looking to build a product or service in such a competitive space. And I guess that's a bit, as you say, being aggressive, being proactive, focus on both sales, marketing, as well as developing scalable solutions in general. Do you have anything more to add on that point, or?
Yeah, I think the more insight you have, the better it is. So, I mean, if you can launch something, and if you haven't done a competitive analysis of the market to see where is it highly competitive in this matrix, because if you don't have that overview, you're not going to understand how you can position yourself differently. What feature you would like to build that no one has built. So I think it starts with market insights, and then you don't have to. I mean, you can develop something fairly easy and simple as long as you solve one major pain for people, and the more people have that pain, the bigger your potential is. But yeah, I would go back to that same old stupid saying that if you're not embarrassed by your first product, you didn't launch fast enough. It is a sickness of trying to make everything perfect and wait for perfect. You will never get anywhere. You just got to get shit out there, get feedback, and rapid improvements. And the longer you wait, the harder it is to get out there. And I would definitely bootstrap it as long as you could. Yeah. Working on your spare time, and then don't quit your day job until you see that you have a business case. You have something that actually can have a right of living, and then go all in. Do friends and family funding before you have to give away too much of your cake. Sit on that cake as long as you can. But at some point, you do need muscles. Yeah. You're not gonna create a product-led growth company without some money to develop and some money to put it out. Yeah.
And what would you say for kind of startup founders who have done the bootstrapping route but are kind of now starting to get to the point where that is getting a bit tight and they may need to find other alternatives at that point?
I think the investment market now is harder than it's been. I think if you can't show revenue, if you can't show at least a timeline to break even to profitability, it's going to be hard. You really gotta be a number cruncher and lay out a plan that's feasible, but that's created by real insight. And then chop it up in steps, do a 5-stage rocket on it, and then you can always pull the plug if you want investors in, split things up into stages where funding is dependent on the next stage being reached, just to take away the risk for them. And most investors will obviously probably put that as a requirement, that if you don't achieve A, you don't get B, and if you don't achieve C, you don't get D. So it's as long as you have a good concept, as long as you've done your research, as long as you have data to back it, there's so many things that's gonna so many new inventions and so much new technology that's going to be created now. We've just started this. This is merely the beginning, and if you don't include AI in things now, at machine learning, in some point, you're definitely missing out, I think. And now there's shelf. You can buy things off the shelf, where it's insane. You can talk to AI now in your solution if you want to.
Yeah.
And you got to do a leap. You got to outpace or out deliver on your competitors if you're gonna steal the market. And whatever that is, that you got to figure out, and then you got to build it.
Yeah. And finally, what's one thing you hope listeners take away from your journey and the story of Adminflow?
It's for the special interested people. If you're not comfortable with sitting in pain, I guess, I forgot who said it, but being a founder or starting a company, it's like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. And if it wasn't that way, then it would be a big red flag. It's supposed to be that way, but my thing is, if I don't do this, I will be a miserable old man when I'm old. So if you feel you have it in you, if you feel like you want to try it, try it. If you're young, if you're in your 20s, you got plenty of time to try things. But align yourself with some smart people. Set up some sparring partners. Find out who your parents work for that you can piggyback on some skill sets from. Because it's knowledge and experience that will still trump eagerness and enthusiastic young people. So, but that energy that young people have, that I'm lucky that I still have due to my DNA and genes, you got to be able to, like Tyson once said, it's not a matter of how many times you get knocked down. It's always standing up, getting up again, and it's fun. It's fun when you achieve it, but it's a hard way to go. Yeah. And again, I think it's for 5% of the population, maybe 2.
Absolutely.
But yeah, do it. There's another way. If you have a passion for it, you'll hate yourself for not trying.
Absolutely. I think that's a good way to good spot for leaving this off. Thanks so much for joining us. Is there any places people can find more about you, about Adminflow in general, that you would like to share?
You can go to adminflow.no, book a meeting with me if you would like a demo, and see what we do. You find me on LinkedIn. My name's Stefan Okstveit. Connect with me there. I'm built that way. What can I do for you? I'm willing to share my best tips and advice on growth hacking, on gamification, on CMO roles, and building a company. Reach out to me. I'm available.
Amazing. So guys, reach out to Stefan. Also be sure to like and subscribe for more podcasts with Mavericks like this. Really enjoyed this conversation. So I hope everyone there at home also have enjoyed watching, maybe learned something, been inspired. So looking forward to see you all in the next episode. And been amazing talking to you, Stefan. I wish you a great day forward.
Thank you, Stefan.